Athanasiadis will agree that you'd be hard-pressed to find a tastier tomato salad with olive oil and perfectly cooked fish anywhere else. Our mineral water makes Evian seem like table water, no offense to the French. Imagine using the incredible ingredients that grow in our soil and water in our beers. How can they not be good? We will continue to bring you similar interesting events so that we can constantly remind everyone and spread the word that Greece and its products are synonymous with high quality. I'd like to now invite the Consul General to say a few words. Dr. Koutras.
Thank you, Marcos. Thank you very much. I would limit myself in 30 seconds because all I had to say, you told it before. So I thank you very much. Greece thanks you all very much for what you are doing, for this wonderful initiative, and for the amazing job you are doing in promoting the Greek exports to the United States, and not only. Because exporting the tremendous Greek products, as you said rightfully before, is the only way to help the Greek economy. And this is very important. Congratulations, and you have the floor again back.
Oh, thank you. And believe me when I say that we are indebted for all your hard work. Both you and your wife do an incredible job. And quite frankly, with everything that's been going on, you've been managing the consulate incredibly, because it's not an easy time for you and your staff. And we really appreciate everything that you're going through. Thank you. Trade Minister Michailidis, would you like to say a few words, please?
Well, yeah, thank you very much for having me here. This is a great opportunity. I'd like to thank Alexandra for putting this event, for producing this event, and we're very glad to be on board. We're looking forward to similar events taking place in the near future. So I understand that I'm here to say a couple of things about the Greek food exports, and especially about the beer exports to the U.S. So as far as the Greek beer exports to the U.S. are concerned, I would say that numbers are negligible and far behind than what they should be, which is actually the case with most of the Greek products. Greek beer exports to the U.S. amounted to $1,240,000 in 2018, and then $1,360,000 in 2019, which actually constitutes a growth, a rise by almost 10%. Now, if we take into consideration that the overall value of Greek exports to the U.S. is $1.5 billion, and then out of which 29% is the food exports, we can see why beer exports are really negligible. To put it in better perspective, I would say that beer exports to the U.S. actually constitute only 0.09% of the overall Greek exports to the U.S. And as far as the Greek food exports to the U.S. are concerned, then this is again very small. It's just a 0.3%. So the primary product that in the food sector that Greek exports to the U.S. is table olives, of course.
What is wrong with the sound?
What's that?
The sound. You come and go.
I don't know why it's the case. Can you hear me better now? Can you all hear me?
We can hear you, but
not loud enough. Not loud enough.
Okay, I will speak a bit louder. So I was saying that the primary product that Greece exports to the U.S. is table olives. The total value of the Greek olive exports is $161 million. It's 38% of the total food exports to the U.S. I would say that the primary product problem is...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You have to move the computer a little bit. Something is wrong with the sound. We cannot enjoy the
yeah, thank you.
Are you telling me to do something? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Something is wrong with your sound, maybe. Maybe you,
I don't know. I'm not doing anything.
okay. Let's try
So
now.
I was saying that the primary problem behind this, so to say, small Greek exports to the US is the fact that there is lack of marketing. The average American consumer is not aware of the quality of Greek products. So what Greek products as a whole lack, in the case of exports to the US is concerned, is lack of marketing. That's one thing. And the other thing is the fact that most of the Greek companies, food exporting companies, are small family businesses. And as a result of this, they cannot or will not bear the expenses of penetrating into a very competitive, saturated market as the US. So
Mr. Michailidis, we're again having an issue. I'm sorry.
I don't know what to say. I mean, it was
are you working from a laptop?
No, I'm working from a desktop.
Maybe if you come closer to the computer, because we were left off at the marketing problem of the...
Okay, what I was saying is that
Yes.
the first thing is the marketing problem, as far as the overall picture of the Greek exports is concerned. And then on the other hand, the other problem is the small size of Greek companies. Most of the Greek companies are small companies. And as a result of this, they lack the funds or the expertise to penetrate and place their products into a saturated, very competitive market as the US market. So if we combine these things together, the lack of marketing and the size of the average company in Greece, this actually leads us to the conclusion, leads us to understand why it is that Greek exports of Greek food exports to the US actually are not at the level that we would like them to be. But for example, to put it, it's very, very indicative of the overall situation that other competitive countries, such as, for example, Spain or Italy, have implemented similar such promotional marketing campaigns for very long, and they have managed to actually take the market and be dominant in the market, to be the primary players in the market as far as the exports are concerned. The European food exports are concerned to the US. This is what I would like to say at this point, and of course I am open to questions in case somebody would like to ask something.
Mr. Michailidis, we will have questions at the end after
Of
the beer
course.
tasting. Unfortunately, we couldn't hear very well. Hello?
I don't know.
Is it possible to have a copy of what you have presented? Because I feel it was terribly valuable to get up to date as to the state of affairs, exports, imports, and effort to do market penetration.
Yes, maybe we should take some questions now. It was very interesting.
I was speaking from my mind. It's not actually that I have a text that I'm speaking from. So I will be more than glad to email you any questions that you might have. If you want to address any questions by email or right now, I will be more than willing to address these questions by email and sharing all this stuff that I just...
Has there been a market segmentation that provides some better market intelligence as what may be a low-hanging fruit in the US?
Can you be a bit more specific about that? What do you mean exactly?
Well, if there has been a consultancy engaged, I'm sure there are some that have studied based on what products, Greek products have attraction so far based on their, in other markets, and based on the current market demand in the US, and matching where there may be easy wins. And I will tell you, I'm in the periphery, but this is kind of very typical when one is making a concerted effort to penetrate a market. Usually there is a market segmentation to study what the market does, the trajectories, and then tries to match market demand in the US based on product offerings in Greece. And in particular, I'm from Thessaloniki. I see, and again, I don't have any intelligence in terms of this market space, but there is a raised awareness of products that are for vegetarians and, you know, the individuals who, for health reasons or other, or because it is because it is a trend to stick with vegetable-based products. And I've tasted a cheese in Thessaloniki. I know the name of the company that was based on vegetables that was absolutely amazing. And I have not, and it is produced in Macedonia in a factory there. I have the name, I will email it to you. It doesn't come off right now. And I thought, wow, of all the vegetable-based cheeses that I've tasted in the US, nothing comes close.
Right. What is the question again?
The question is if there is a consultancy, if the consul or Greece or you know has engaged with a consultancy to perform market segmentation that will gather market intelligence about a demand, a product lines for whose there is a rising demand, a trajectory, then we can match that demand with product offerings from Greece, because we're talking about improving market product exports for Greece, right? That was the whole objective.
Okay. Such reports do take place, do happen, and the Greek trade offices in the US, the trade office in New York, the trade office in Washington, in San Francisco, in Chicago, they do produce such reports, and then we forward them to the producers associations in Greece and to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We always inform Greek state and private entities about the current state of play in the US market and what the challenges and opportunities are. We cannot inform each and every individual company because we cannot have access and we cannot be aware of every single individual company in Greece. So what we do is that we see the market, we see what the challenges are, we see what the opportunities are, and then we inform the Greek entities, state entities or private entities, like exporters associations, like chambers, like industrialists. And then we hope that these associations and entities disseminate the information to their constituents. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of, sort of, because
Penelope, if you don't mind if I interject, because we have a couple people that are going to speak and they're on the line from Greece. Thank you, Trade Minister Michailidis, and we could always take up questions afterwards. I'd like to invite Maida, the brewer of our donkey beers, yellow, crazy, red, to come and speak and tell us a little bit about what got her into the beer industry. But I think before she speaks or right when she comes on, we should open one of the beers so that we can try a beer and get this going.
I recommend the yellow donkey to be the first beer to be consumed.
Okay, wonderful. So everybody, please open the yellow donkey.
Now let's open the yellow donkey then.
If we're going in terms of flavor profile, I think Maida would agree. Yellow, red, crazy.
I absolutely agree. And yellow is the most popular. It's summertime beer. I'm not opening one myself, but I can.
I'll drink for you. Don't worry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Marco, I'm not the brewer. That's not my job. But I'm certainly the procurer of all of our ingredients and the other not so fun stuff that goes on at the brewery. Did you taste? How does it taste, Andrea?
It's tasting great. So maybe, Maida, would you like to explain, why don't you give everybody a bit of a background as to when the brewery was established, where it's located, the philosophy, and obviously a little bit about Boban, who is the brewer, because his beers tend to be the hoppier styles as opposed to what they'll be tasting later on. So it might be interesting just to discuss the differences. Yamas.
Sí, yes. We started the brewery about 10 years ago. No, 9 years ago. It's a long time. It was an idea with a group of friends, and really none of us had a background in brewing, but we thought it was a good idea. And where the brewer and I live. So.
Come a little closer to the mic.
Oh, anyway, Santorini is where we live, so we decided to start the brewery here. And at the time we started the brewery, I was working for a little hotel in Pia that Marco closed. And basically we import all the ingredients here to Santorini from, the malt comes from Austria, the hops come from all over the world. We desalinate seawater to make the beer because we don't really have an abundance of water on the island. And our idea was to make very fresh beers. So they are unpasteurized, they're unfiltered, they need to be refrigerated all the time, which makes them not have a very long lasting shelf life, as Andrea knows. But it also has that very fresh and lively flavor. All of them are supposed to be different. They have a lot more body than a sort of conventional lager would have. And we hope that in different ways, they're enjoyable. Definitely the summer beer is Yellow Donkey. That's the one that is the most popular here on the island. Maybe not this summer, but in general.
It's delicious. And what would you recommend we open next to try?
I always think you go red next. Red gets a little more popular. It's our Belgian style ale. It uses a Belgian style yeast. It's actually hoppier than the yellow, although I think it has a little bit of sweetness from the yeast. It gets more popular when the weather cools off. It pairs nicely with food. And I don't know what else to say about it. Marcos, you're really pouring a beer there.
I'm in my office and I don't have a proper.
We're really going into
beer opener.
I know.
Okay.
In the brewery, everybody's out of a bottle these days. But
maybe Andrea would like to fill in some information on Red Donkey. Unmute yourself, Andrea. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So in terms of the beer, so as just to kind of follow up with what Maida was saying, just to give people a background, the original intent with us importing the Santorini beers to the United States was to kind of pick off where the sales lagged off from the island when they had their tourist season. So we would always be, and of course, because what Maida said is that since the beers need to be refrigerated, we have to be very mindful of temperature. These are not beers that you can just leave on the shelf, room temperature for months on end. You might end up with Lord knows what you're going to find at that point. Things might be growing in it, I would assume, but we're not looking for that. This is all fresh. So we're very mindful about how we bring in the beer. The beers come in during the cooler months for us. And if there is a possibility where we might have heat, we actually have to use refrigerated containers from Greece. Our warehouse in New York is fully refrigerated. So the beers, at least until they leave my warehouse, are of that persuasion. In terms of the styles, the yellow for me, because again, I'm more of a wine person, but I can kind of translate it into the beer side. I always find yellow has a little more citrus. It's that lighter style where you could have like 2 or 3 sitting on the beach, up on a rooftop, chilling out. I do get where Maida is saying with the red donkey, where it has a little bit of the sweetness. The color as well, if you've got your glasses lined up, you can see that you're going from a yellow color to a more, not amber, but like a little bit more red notes. And I think that also translates on the palate because it's a little bit more full bodied, and it can hold up to more food options. So whereas you would probably have the yellow by itself at the beginning of a meal, then if you went into red donkey for, let's say, your appetizer or a lighter meal, maybe like a souvlaki or maybe even just a salad for all I know, then that's a great option for it as long as you serve it super chilled.
So we have one donkey left. So why don't you describe Crazy Donkey before we try it, so that people.
Maida, would you like to do that? You want to start and explain the name of the Crazy Donkey, and then I'll come up with the taste notes.
Okay, I will tell the real story of the Crazy Donkey name. Ooh. When we started our brewery, we didn't really know what we were doing, and the people that control us also they weren't very encouraging. And we thought that we could just make a different beer, whatever the brewer felt like making. And I thought of Crazy Donkey as Crazy 8. Like you can have a wild card and you can just make it something else. So the original had the in it. Remember that? The very first.
Yes, I remember that.
Donkey. And then the second one we introduced was our IPA, and it was the first India Pale. And that's when we understood that the law said we had to stick with the name and what we were producing. So Crazy Donkey was the name that particular recipe had, and it seemed to fit the first IPA. It's not an over-the-top hoppy, super IBU kind of IPA. It's sort of a middle range because Greeks weren't really used to that kind of flavor spectrum like North Americans are. So it's sort of an in-betweeny IPA, I think. Not super hoppy, a little too hoppy for me, but we don't make beer for me. It's, and I don't know, it has grown more popular over the years. And of course, there are a lot more little breweries in Greece. When we opened our brewery, we were the 18th in the whole country, even the big ones. And now there must be 50 something or so. Beer culture is here. Well, please feel free to add.
It's the perfect name for our times. And we are definitely living in crazy times. So, like to just add a few notes on.
Sure. So as Maida said, for us, I will have to say that because the United States tends to be a very IPA-driven society, that in terms of their flavor profile and taste, this has become our most popular beer of the 3. And in terms of the flavor profile, again, I'm with Maida. I'm not a huge IPA person. Like, for example, my husband can drink double IPAs till the cows come home. I find them very heavy. This is a beer that you definitely need food with. I mean, at least for me, I find, hold on, let me take my sip so I can give you the tasting note. Hey, listen, this is how I do it for wine, so I might as well do it for beer. I do get a little bit of not a floral note per se, but there is a really nice, delicate and balance where you still have acidity. It's also something that is refreshing, yet has the ability to pair with, again, the right foods. Here you probably want to go a little bit more towards grilled meats. I wouldn't necessarily have this with the fish. I would say that you would need to have something with a little more substance behind it, because I think the palate would get fatigued if you had too much of it. Again, this is me. I have a very weird taste anyway, but flavor profile and the way I taste. But for me, this would be almost like I'm drinking red wine at a meal. That is exactly what I would pretty much would compare it towards.
There was somebody sent a question. They're asking, can you speak to the research you did to determine your flavor profiles and tailoring them to the market?
I would say we can thank the Greek bureaucracy, because it took us about 5 months to get our license to sell beer. And in the meantime, the brewer made a lot of beer that was consumed but not sold. And he had an idea that he wanted to make something in the way of the yellow donkey to be light, and the red donkey. He had ideas, but he perfected the recipes during that long period where we were waiting to get a license. So it wasn't really a research.
Mm-hmm.
It was a learn by doing thing.
Gotcha. Does anybody have any questions for Maida or Andrea?
If I might just make a quick point, because a lot of times people ask us where we can find the beers. As I also mentioned, because of the sensitivity with temperatures and we need to keep things chilled, there's a lot of times where we don't have beer in the summer months, which obviously is very counterintuitive to when people are drinking beer. Obviously this year we have more beer because we're in a pandemic, so we're obviously able to get more product off the island right now. I will say that in terms of pricing, because a lot of people will find this, and this is where this is a great event, and I thank you very much, where you might not find these beers everywhere, because as we were saying, a lot of times people don't realize that they need to ask for them. A lot of people think, oh, it's beer, it's Greek, it's cheap, it should be like $3, $4. No, not when you're talking about craft beer. So we need to remember we're also dealing with a little bit of a higher price point, but we're also dealing with a craft product that demands to be a little bit more expensive. And it takes the consumer to basically pester the retailer, restaurant, or a grocery store to say, hey, by the way, I'm willing to pay, let's say, $7 a bottle. I want this product, because the customer is always right. So that's something that I want for people to take away from this as well, is that these are not your, $12.99 or even cheaper beers like a Budweiser you're going off on the shelf with. So just keep that in mind. These are craft products. They're made with love. They're made from Santorini, and they take a long way to get here. And we just have to be mindful of that.
Well, I think, we have Avra, the GM from Avra, who's going to speak soon. And if restaurants like Avra carried Donkey and other beers, that would go a long way for promoting our beer industry, because they have such a huge audience. They themselves have an incredible product. And if you add the Greek beers to their product, you really have something special. And
there is one thing though, I just want to go back, because I know we shouldn't, and I don't want to monopolize the time, but the one thing about Greek products in the US, don't forget the beer market in the United States is hyper competitive. There are over 2,000 microbreweries in the United States. So imports have trouble getting full-on market penetration. So that's why it tends to be a bit more of a grassroots approach, whereas to convince a retailer to carry products like these, it needs to come from the perception that there is a demand from the consumer, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And look, I hope an event like this also, it brought people to Mediterranean, to Titan, to Pi, to buy beer, and hopefully they'll continue to do it, to buy the beer after this event. And
ask for it.
Small steps that we can take to help promote the Greek beer industry and just Greek products in general.
Exactly.
And just so you know, we have enough shipping people on this Zoom call that if you really needed to get beer into the US on a regular basis,
don't worry. I've got that covered. Don't you worry about my shipping. That part's all good. It's just getting things here at the right time, so we keep everything as fresh as possible. That's our most important thing.
Well, thank you both. I'm certainly a big fan of your beer, Maida, and of you.
Thank you for including me.
So, we thank you for everything that you've done with the company and for Greece itself. It's much appreciated. And we have a very well-known Greek chef waiting patiently, Chef Athanasiadis, who has the Nice and Easy restaurants. And we'd like to hear from him and how he incorporates the various Greek beers into his kitchen and to the restaurant and suggested pairings possibly. Chef?
Γεια σας. Με λένε Χρήστο Αθανασιάδη. Θα μιλήσω ελληνικά γιατί τα αγγλικά μου δεν είναι πολύ καλά. Ελπίζω να μην υπάρχει πρόβλημα γι' αυτό και οι περισσότεροι από εσάς Έλληνες...
Chef, δεν σας ακούμε. Με συγχωρείτε, Chef, δεν σας ακούμε. I'm gonna try to...
Τώρα με ακούτε καλύτερα?
Ναι, καλύτερα, ναι. Θα προσπαθήσω να μεταφράσω λίγο γιατί δεν είναι όλοι αγγλόφωνοι στο...
Ωραία, μια χαρά. Είμαι ο σεφ Χρήστος Αθανασιάδης. Είμαι owner στο restaurant group Nice and Easy. Η συνεταιρή μου είναι Ελληνοαμερικάνη κι αυτή. Ο ηθοποιός ο Μάνος ο Γαβράς, που ζούσε και εργαζόταν στη Νέα Υόρκη πολλά χρόνια, και ο Δημήτρης ο Χριστοφορίδης, που ήταν για πάνω από 20 χρόνια στο Λος Άντζελες. Και από αυτούς ξεκίνησε η ιδέα και ξεκινήσαμε και κάναμε το πρώτο βιολογικό οργανικό εστιατόριο στην Ελλάδα και μετά φτάσαμε να έχουμε τώρα γύρω στις 15 επιχειρήσεις, 15 εστιατόρια στην Αθήνα και στη Μύκονο.
Να τους εξηγήσω μισό λεπτό. Chef Athanasiadis is based in Greece with 15, 15 δεν είπαμε, 15 entities. His partners are Greek American. I think you understood their names. And it's the first organic, chef? Organic?
Yes, organic. All the chains organic restaurants.
Yes, it's one of the first organic restaurants, Greek organic restaurants. Enalaktiko, we call it. It gives a little bit of a twist to the Greek cuisine. Correct, Chef?
Yes, correct.
Okay, okay.
But we have a lot of commons with, we take some ideas from the American cuisine. Also, we cook and we sell a lot of burgers. With a twist of Greek flavors.
That's wonderful. Chef Athanasiadis has paired the beers. His menu.
I choose 3 recipes with great ingredients, Greek ingredients. Is a type mezedes. One of them is feta tempura, bread stick feta, fried feta with spicy tomato jam. This recipe I can eat together with yellow donkey. Yellow donkey is very light lager beer. And it's much with this my recipe. I have other 2 recipes, very spectacular. One bruschetta with sourdough bread, prosciutto from Evrytania. We make prosciutto in Greece, if you don't know, and blue cheese from Evia. Also, we produce from sheep milk, spectacular blue cheese. And the third of my recipes is great to go together with Rentanki, because Rentanki is a spectacular beer with a little bit bitter taste. Is pastry dough roll stuffed with buffalo meat, full buffalo meat. Άρα τα λέω καλά.
Πάρα πολύ ωραία, chef. I'm not even necessary here. Fantastic.
So, Chef, we heard that you may be opening here in the U.S. Is that true?
We was almost with the pen to sign the contract, but this unbelievable pandemic changed all the plans. Yeah. 3 days before we signed, all the world changed. Yeah. And New York closed, Greek closed, and stop everything. We find a nice place near to Madison Square, and we have plans to open a nice and easy organic Greek restaurant there. But hopefully the next year is open for everybody.
Well, ευτυχώς δεν υπογράψατε. Ευτυχώς. Well, we
look forward to those.
Finally do open. We will all be there if we're not in your restaurants in Greece sooner. And hopefully you will bring all these wonderful beers into your establishment in New York for everybody.
I wait for you in Mykonos. We have many restaurants in Mykonos and the biggest beach club in the South Mediterranean coast in Mykonos with the biggest pool on the sand. Έχουμε μια πισίνα 2.000 τετραγωνικά μέτρα. Our pool is 2,000 square meters. It's huge, behind to the sea.
So it's perfect to social distance. It's so big that you can all stay 6 feet apart.
Thousands of meters.
So, well, thank you very much. Thank you for participating, and we wish you continued success, and hopefully, you know, we all get back to business as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you in New York again.
Thank you. So, Alexandra, who is next on our list of speakers?
Well, we heard from Andrea, so we're going to go to Mr. Scott Brayton, yes, because we're having a little bit of an issue with some of the slides that Mr. Mavreas from Fix and Nestor Imports, Fix and Mythos, will be there shortly. So, but we really are excited about Scott speaking with us. So.
Hello, Scott. Oh, there you go. Well, first, before you get started, I just want you to know there are a lot of people on this call that are big fans of Avra, and I'm sure you probably recognize a lot of our faces if you saw us in the restaurants. Honestly, I live close to the Madison location, but my heart is still on 48th Street. So, you know, what can I say? But you know, please tell us a little bit about Avra and its beer program, and you know, what Greek beers you sell, and you know, how do you present them to your customers?
Sure. So I actually opened the restaurant as the beverage director and the sommelier, and was promoted to the general manager about a year ago. So I'm very familiar with our program. Unfortunately, there isn't a huge demand for beer, which is kind of disappointing to me because, you know, I'm a beer drinker. I'm you know, it's definitely the way to go. And if you haven't come by recently, you should definitely come check out our outside space, both 48th Street and my restaurant, Madison. I think we've done a great job setting up the outside, and we're getting more and more tables as time goes on during this pandemic. So yeah, I mean, right now the only Greek beer we have on the list is Fix. And you know, somebody had mentioned earlier that she doesn't make the beers for herself. Well, I don't make wine lists and beer lists for myself. I make them for the audience that we have. And, you know, lagers seem to be, you know, the biggest hit right now with our clientele. And I do think that it pairs really, the Fix in particular, I think pairs well with everything on the menu. It's a lighter or medium bodied beer, which can pair with the fried foods. You know, I sent the Avra chips, the zucchini and eggplant chips recipe. That's by far the biggest request I have for recipes, and it's definitely our biggest seller. So I thought it was important that I send along that recipe so that everybody now has it and can stop asking me for it. But you know, I think that the hoppiness of Fix, it's not like a huge hoppy beer like an IPA, but it does have some hops to it, and you know, the medium carbonation goes well with those fried foods, but at the same time, some of the lighter foods that we have, the fish and things like that, it pairs well.
Great, thank you. Well, I hope today we will have at least piqued your interest in introducing some new beers to your beer list. You know, especially I think the marketing could be great for having, you know, the donkey beers or, you know, other small Greek producers as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Well with your clientele.
I'm still heavily involved with the whole list, the beer list and everything. So I'm always interested in, especially Greek products. Obviously, I want, you know, as many in-house as I can possibly get. So certainly interested in discussing.
All right, wonderful, great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions thus far for anyone as we move along in the program?
I have a question for Mrs. Inglesis.
Sure.
Okay, the question is, where do they sell the product mostly? Do they sell the product mostly to the food service or retail, the beers?
Well, the question is a double-edged sword. Pre-pandemic or now in pandemic? The majority.
Both.
Well, restaurants for the most part. The majority, because again, as I alluded to before, because of the higher price point of these particular beers, they tended to be more in specialty beer houses, restaurants that focus more on beer, as well as more fine dining tablecloth establishments, not just Greek, but, you know, a bunch of other ones as well, from other Mediterranean focused menus. And then a lot of the craft beer retailers. Of course, you know, if you're in New York, yes, you go to your Titans, your Mediterraneans. And then there's been interest because, again, of people going to their local craft beer stores and asking for the beers. You're starting to see them popping up in Westchester and Long Island and so forth. But, you know, it's until the customer goes and asks them, well, why don't you have it? All of a sudden the retailer, because again, you have to think about it on the flip side. They're bombarded with over 1,000 different products almost on a monthly basis. Why do they need to have something from Greece? So when the customer comes in and says, I need this, why don't you have it? All of a sudden it gets forefront in their mind, as opposed to that's how things work. So mostly in this neck of the woods, you'll find it a lot in Astoria. You'll find it up in Brewing Co., which is in Westchester and Bedford Hills. And then out in, oh geez, you guys have to email me. I have to give you the rest of the places. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there are some more specialty places that are selling the beers.
Well, Andrea, though, I would also argue that places like Nice and Easy and Avra are trendsetters. So
they are. They can buy.
Like that,
they're more than welcome to buy the beer from us. We are a licensed wholesaler in the state of New York. We sell to everyone with a license here in New York.
If they took a particular beer, maybe like the donkey that people are not familiar with, I believe that they could actually make a market for it. And
exactly.
That's such a successful restaurant like Avra. Go ahead, Scott.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you can take my word for it. Come see me, and Crazy Donkey or Red Donkey will be on the Avra beer list. I promise you that.
You're in trouble now. You told me that amongst 100 of our closest friends. Next week, you're going to be finding me torturing you.
It's okay.
Andrea, may I interject a little bit?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Professor.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Andrea is lugging a heavy bottle there. Is that the best way to introduce it? Do they come in cans, for example?
No. Well, that's an interesting question that you're asking. Maida might be able to actually allude to it more. Canned beer in Greece is very difficult. I think a lot has to do with the canning line. We've discussed it a couple of times.
You need to, the small breweries in the U.S. can have the mobile canning units come to their brewery and put all their product in cans. We don't have that. We have a bottling line. We have.
Is that a 12 ounce or 16 ounce bottle?
This is a 12 ounce. It's what is it? Hold on. It's 11.2 fluid ounces, 330 ml.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of what, to answer your question, a lot of it is the canning situation. Is that here, like for example, if you go to a microbrewery in Brooklyn, if you go to Other Half,
Right.
they have it's literally a mobile canning unit that's on the back of a trailer, and they're able to just brew what they need to and move on to the next brewery. Greece doesn't have that. That's also why you haven't seen like wine in cans and things like that, because that's actually not allowed in the legislation.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. No problem.
Andrea, but would the taste be affected by the use of a can as opposed to
that's the $1 million question. You got to ask Maida that one. I'm out. I'm not even going to go that
All
far.
right, Maida.
It might.
Yes, but you're speaking to the person that doesn't drink much beer.
We have to ask
You go for one and put aside the Uzaki.
I am resistant to beer in cans because it reminds me of college, but I think they've improved the cans greatly over the years, so they don't have that metal taste that I recall.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's food for thought. We have to discuss it, perhaps. Maybe, it could give us something in the future. Perhaps.
Well, thank you.
I can't wait for the taste to begin. I'm
already done. I'm 3 bottles in over here. I hope everybody's tasting something.
I did not get anything yet, but I'm sure it's in the mail.
So, is Mr. Mavres there? Yes.
Yes, I am. Hello, everybody.
Are you ready to talk about Fix and Mythos, even though we spoke a little bit? Scott?
I am ready.
Scott got into Fix a little bit ahead of you, but maybe you can tell us some more, and also about Mythos, and a little bit about the Greek beer industry in general.
Yeah, sure. Let me start with some basics about my company, just so everybody's familiar with it. We are Nestor Imports, which is a company that was established in 1984 here in New York. We are a distributor of beer, wine, and spirits. Since the year 2007, we were purchased by Johnson Brothers. Johnson Brothers is the 4th biggest distributor of wine, beer, and alcohol in the United States. As of 2016, we actually signed a partnership with Olympic Brewery. Now, both Mythos and Fix are now owned by Olympic Brewery. So that's something I wanted to make people known about it. Olympic Brewery is the 2nd largest brewery in Greece, and they export in something like 40 countries, I believe, so far now. We ourselves, as Nestor Imports, we distribute Mythos and Fix in 43 different states in the United States. So that's about the company information. Now about the beers. You have Fix and you have Mythos. Fix is probably the oldest Greek beer from Greece right now that's still being produced.
If I interrupt you, just out of curiosity, since you're in so many states, is there one state or another state that's more dominant as far as sales for either Fix or Mythos?
It's a very easy answer.
Is more on the upswing?
Between Mythos and Fix, or between?
Well, just for both Greek beers.
Well, you go where the Greeks are. New York and Florida, I would say, are the number 1 and 2.
And what about penetrating, the non-Greek market in a sense?
Non-Greek market, as I said, we have 43 states. There's no state that doesn't have even a small Greek-based community that, starting with them, then they bring it to some of the restaurants, then to go to the local markets, and then people know about it, and then just start, the travel to Greece, come back, I want to try the Greek beers. Our products you can find everywhere, the donkey products as well, like, people will visit Santorini, so it's something that they get familiar with, and they want to have that experience back at home.
So, in many ways, the Greek products are ambassadors, for Greece. And a lot of times, yes, it's true. You can try the yellow donkey or the red donkey or crazy donkey or Fix or Mythos, and then, want to go to Greece in many ways. That happens often when people experience something here, and there's a draw to go back to the place where it's produced.
Exactly. Fix was established in 1864, and the name comes from Charles Fix, which was one of, I want to say, the people that came in with King Otho when they brought the King of Otto back in Greece to establish the Kingdom of Greece. And he was one of the people that they brought their German Bavarian traditions with them, and one of them was beer making. So there's been a beer named Fix, named after him, made since 1864. It has gone through a lot of phases, but right now, in its modern reincarnation, it is produced by Olympic Brewery.
Nico,
yes,
a question. I graduated elementary school in Athens in 1955, and the next year we came to America. I was 12 years old. And I remember driving past Odosigru, where Fix was located. Whatever happened to that complex of buildings? Is that
it's not from my understanding, it's a modern museum of art, like event space.
Oh, I see. It was converted. Yeah.
Correct. Olympic Brewery has built, has two factories. One is predominantly making mythos up in Thessaloniki, outside Thessaloniki, and one Fix in Athens, outside the new airport.
Uh-huh.
So mythos itself was a modern product. The company wanted to penetrate the new modern beer market, and they made that in 2007. And as all you have seen or know or noticed, Mythos is the top sold beer in Greece right now. Now, they're both lagers. We were talking about all the other unique flavors of the microbreweries. Mythos and Fix are two classic lager beers, like the ones that you're always familiar with, like your Heineken, your Stella, your Peroni, no matter what country. As far as flavor profile, I want to say that Mythos is lighter, it's crispier, it's more refreshing, more easy drinking. Fix itself is a little bit more complex. People that know about beer talk about more malty, more hoppy, and but they're both in that crisp, refreshing style that true lager beers are produced.
No, but you know what? I just opened the bottle of Mythos, and I like this new opener. I haven't seen it before.
No need for a key or a lighter or something else, or find a keychain to open it up. That's part of the innovation of the Mythos Brewery. It's actually this happened 2 years ago. The new bottle shape and the new cap that, if you've noticed, is just a pole cap. Olympic Brewery is the ambassador of Greek beers. It is 10% of their total market is exports. So they're always looking for innovation, which innovation though also comes with some of, since we're talking about it, we need a huger volume to introduce new items or cans or this and that, like most of the products from Greece.
Now, do you guys hold a patent for this? Does Olympic?
The parent company holds the patent for it. It's
very, very interesting. Oh, wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Mavreas? No? Okay. Well, is there anything that you'd like to add just in general about your familiarity with?
Yeah, I do. I actually had a slide prepared that we were trying to figure out how to share the screen, but you know, I can have Alexandra forward the presentation to all the participants.
Okay.
If you want to look at it. I finished my presentation with a map of microbreweries in Greece, of all breweries, small and micro. There's a map of has more than 50 microbreweries right now that are active and in existence in Greece, that are promoting Greek beer, pushing Greek beer, trying to make it to the export markets, trying to basically better the image of Greek beer to the non-Greek market, which is the goal for everybody.
Two questions. One, can this recording be a link to us eventually? I don't know.
I am not sure if they have recorded it.
Ah, okay.
Yes,
and
we have
the other is, isn't there a cultural uptick, you know, to fight wine and ouzo in the Hellenic makeup, you know, in the DNA? I wonder what is the segment of alcohol beverages that beer represents in Greece and among Greeks abroad.
I can speak for the American market. As far as volume goes, it's something like 20% of our business. A huge, I mean, wine is still number one, but then you also have the spirits, ouzo. You know, we actually Plomari and Barbayani, and we have Tsipuro. And I can't tell you the uptick on Tsipuro sales now with the coronavirus. I mean, I use it as a antiseptic.
As someone from Volos, Thessalia, with connections to Tyrnavos, I can tell you about Tsipro is number one. Tavuzeri, you know, along Stibaralia.
Exactly, the Tsipuradica, Volos.
Ah, bravo. Ah, pote da pame.
Next year. We're all going to go next year.
Oh, yeah. Right.
We're trying to go this year. So Didios had a question. Can you please ask it?
Where is it?
Right at 5:06. I asked if you could rephrase.
How does that compare?
I've unmuted Sotirios. He can ask himself if he'd like. Sotirios?
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi. Thank you. No, you were talking about beer as a percentage.
Of
Olympic beer being 10% of.
I believe Mr. Michailidis in the beginning gave us the numbers of beer compared to like total wine and alcohol for like the whole market. But I think it hovers around that, like 10 to 20% of total alcoholic exports in the United States.
So what percentage of that would be microbrewers? So those 50 microbrewers, I mean, are we talking like 0.5%, something really small?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
It's super small, super small.
I figured. Is there synergy between those 50 microbreweries to try to elevate the brand image of Greek microbrews to compete with larger establishments?
Can I hop in on that?
Yeah, sure.
Nico? Okay, because I think you know there's two different people. Like Nico's going to talk about he's a more commercialized brand versus what the really craft stuff is. There's a huge difference in shelf life. Maida alluded to that before, where when you're talking about a craft product that has a shelf life of maybe 6 to 9 months versus 12 to 18, you have a very, very short window to get product to market and get it sold. So it's very difficult on that side. That's why the super craft stuff, you probably are going to be very hard pressed to find it in the more widespread market saturation, I guess you would say, because you know by the time you get it here, don't forget it takes a month, and then you've got to get it out, and then you've got to get it further out. So therefore, it's a little more difficult on the hyper, you know, in the hyper microbrewery case. It's not as easy as going with the larger breweries.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Sorry, I was trying to make sense with that because. You know.
So what you said is absolutely true. Microbreweries have that small window. Even big companies like us, like none of our partners will accept beer in another state unless it has like a 6 to 8 month window. So it's always, even for us, is always a constant effort to make sure that we always keep fresh. We are enough just to cover the market and never stay behind, because nobody wants to purchase expired beer, no matter what country it comes from. As far as microbreweries in Greece, the ones that have tried Donkey, Voria, Septem, Corfu, Paros, they're all amazing products. It's just there's not enough of it, and there's not enough of that marketing opportunities to actually send someone out in the United States to promote them.
A question, in Greece itself, when you're on the islands per se, what type of penetration do the microbreweries have, like at the Peripta or?
Fortunately, right now, I believe that, as I said before, there's 50 small microbreweries. They're getting that almost like that Italian and French wine, where depending on what town you go, you're going to find only the local products. The same thing is happening with the microbreweries. Wherever location you are, you're going to find the local produced beer plus some of the big names. And then people that know and respect beer will seek out some of the better microbreweries available.
Marco, I think actually that's a good question for Maida. She'd be able to tell you that because she sells all the beer to the rest of Greece.
Is Magda still with us, or did we lose her?
Yes.
Oh.
Unmute? Okay.
Yep. We do have a distributor in Athens he was our first customer, so he's been supporting us for the last 10 years. We have a distributor in Northern Greece, and we do send, in normal years, we send them more of our beer during the winter months because our tourist market is so huge in Santorini. We can't really keep enough beer going on the island in summer. This year is completely different, but we do distribute in other parts of Greece, and we send the beer all over the place. But we would like to have more of it available for everybody all the time. This year, anybody can have whatever they want, but we haven't been that lucky in the past. So we do distribute our beers of quite a few places in the Athens area and a lot of places up near Thessaloniki.
I asked that question because, you know, let's say if you're walking around the streets in Mykonos and you go by one of the kiosks, you always see Amstel and Heineken, and I think that does a disservice, you know, to our own beer industry, and I think Greeks in Greece have to be better at carrying all of our local products in general, instead of supplying other countries' beers more readily than their own beers.
Well, those beers are actually brewed in Greece, so
well,
they are a whole lot less expensive than our beers are, even though you can find them in the Periptero and Fira, or but.
Well, listen, I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to sell us here, so.
I know.
But it also has to do with marketing budgets and promotions and relationships of the distributors with the actual retailers. Like any other.
I just wanted, there's a question. Is there a marketing strategy that leverages the broader Greece brand? Would consumer associate these beers with Greece?
Is that a question for me?
For whoever would like to take it.
Well, Nestor Imports and Johnson Brothers, we do have a marketing budget that we promote our beers through events, through media. But again, it's something that Johnson Brothers and Nestor with Olympic Brewery in Greece have done, which if you see the antenna satellite, it's all about Greece, Greek images, drinking and sipping beer, enjoying life.
I'll hop in then and give you the other. Yeah, exactly. It's very, it's unfortunate that it is a very fragmented marketing thing here in the U.S. Everybody does their own thing just because everybody has their own interests. There has not been a cohesive promotional effort for Greek beer in the United States as there has been for Greek wine. Not even spirits have the same kind of promotional efforts. So is that a fault of Greece? Perhaps. You know, it's something that has to be brought back on that side. Everybody here does whatever they can, but there isn't something in Greece to promote beer or even like spirits at this point. Wine for sure, but not beer.
Okay. Well, I think in general, wine over the years has just been such a more consistent seller with restaurants, where beers have been more in bars in general. but you know, that in recent years has changed as we've had the craft brewers. So hopefully, you know, beer does catch up to wine at some point. But I know here in the United States, there have been issues with a lot of the craft brewers because we ended up having way too many, and you know, they've been fighting for space everywhere, and a lot of them end up they can't survive how the market itself, because it's so competitive. But you know, Greece is of course a more concentrated market, so I think it's important organizations such as the Chamber here and other Greek organizations do their best to promote as many Greek products and, you know, across industries as we can. And, you know, one of the purposes of doing this today was also not to just highlight the beer companies, but it was also to highlight the importers, to remind people that they should go to the Greek stores. I mean, and also the Greek restaurants, you know, so we were trying with this event to kind of remind people of all, you know, not just the maker of the beer, but, you know, everywhere the beer maker ends up going. So we followed along on this path with the beer maker, and hopefully, you know, we brought a little business to our stores. We created a new, some new business for our importers, and we found new customers for our beer makers today. And with that, I'd also like to ask if anybody has any final questions, because we have people from Greece here and we don't want to hold everybody too long. So if anybody would like to ask anything, you know, please do. There's a question here. Curious if the beer reps know of the Delaware Valley Purchasing Group and the businesses in coastal tourist towns of South Jersey.
Yes, we do.
I think Nico would attest to this too. We have to be careful that the United States, even though there's 50 states, there's 50 small governments. Every state has a different law. And a lot of us, for example, we can't sell direct to consumer because that was a question that got posed as well. Every place is different and every place has different laws. So that's why you don't find everything available everywhere. So where we might be aware of things, it's not the easiest thing to work with everywhere, if that makes sense. I know it's a buzzkill, but welcome to the USA. We're a 3-tier system that prohibition only ended 100 years ago. And the laws are weird.
It's interesting because wine seems to have there's a loophole that allows wine to allow for direct to consumer, right? So beer is kind of treated as a different.
No, that's domestic wineries. That's not imports. Difference.
It's domestic wineries within state or with states that have agreements with.
Exactly, bilateral agreements. That's why if you go on certain websites, you can't sell certain things to certain places. Beer, the hugest lobby that it actually works in detriment to imports is Budweiser. Anheuser-Busch has done everything they can to limit imported beer and like small sizes, like 330 ml bottles, into certain states. There are certain states up until very recently, you couldn't even sell these beers because they weren't 12-ounce cans. They were 11.2. And that you can thank the big beer companies here because they were protecting their rights and they just had a lot of money to lobby. That's a whole other ball of wax. We're not going there.
Yeah, that happens in almost every industry, Andrea.
Yeah. No, it's the truth, but that's why you don't find things in certain places because you can't actually sell them. And there's also very, very high licensing fees to get into certain states where if there's a really heavy like local beer presence. Like for example, if I wanted to get into a state like Maine, I would have to pay annually over $1,200 a year for a license. Does it make sense? Texas is the same way.
No,
Andrea, welcome to
February. Because the brewery has to pay too, so it's something like
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's why a lot of states are cost prohibitive.
Yeah. Florida, Tampa, Florida is the headquarters for Anheuser-Busch.
Well, that's why Florida did the worst. They were the worst up until recently. There was a class action lawsuit by microbreweries against them. That's the only reason why the law of the bottle size got reversed.
Yet, I just wanted to add, according to AC Nielsen, the #1 marketing research firm, Boston and Tampa are the 2 testbed markets for any concept, food product concept, and others, but definitely restaurants and you know, food products. Just have that in mind.
We have to deal with licensing and fees and laws every single waking moment of our life.
You guys have no idea what we deal with. That's all I'm going to say.
The issue of beer and drinks goes under the rubric of morals. And welcome to American federalism. This is reserved for each state, and various states have various regulations.
Let's not dwell.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Let's raise a bottle of beer, fix for Mythos, and have a sip right now.
And Gaiduria.
Everybody.
I remember my late father had a delicatessen grocery in Astoria for several decades.
Where?
And you could not sell beer before 12 o'clock on Sunday. You know, there were the Sunday blue laws.
You still cannot.
I do not know, you know, I don't know what the situation is, but just to indicate that it was the influence of not only the church, but also the traditions of New York State that limited, and the city, of course, in this case.
Yeah, so that's, you know, that's the advantage of mine, that I represent a couple companies that we have the right product. Mythos and Fix are very popular. We are doing well. We're promoting them. We're doing better year by year. And that gives us opportunity to be available to almost every state that in the United States. So if you have any questions about it, where to find it or how to get it to your area, Alexandra can forward you my information, and I'll be more than happy to help you locate these products.
Same here.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone again for participating. I think it was a very informative meeting today and quite enjoyable. I hope everybody enjoyed the beers. Maybe there were some beers today that you had never tried. And, you know, we got to hear directly from the importers, the owner, the chefs, and there was quite a bit of valuable insight into the industry and the market. And again, you know, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Marco.
Thank you for having us.
Congratulations.
Participating.
Thank you, Marco.
Yes, Estelio.
Very good job, everybody. Very good job.
Marco, you have to tell us when the next one is with wine. Both me and Andrea, I'd be more than happy to do the wine thing too.
I'm a big wine drinker myself, so we'll set that up.
Set it up.
Now that we have this kind of down to a formula, the first one's always a little difficult.
Exactly.
Just to let everybody know, we have a couple great meetings lined up. One of them is called Emirates, Fly Me to Greece. It keeps getting postponed because the Emirates keeps canceling flights to Greece. But we have one of the big executives at Emirates who's going to come and speak to us about what it's going to mean or look like as a passenger flying from the US to Greece and basically worldwide. So that's going to be quite interesting. We're putting together another event for restaurants called Start Your Engines, and how restaurants are dealing with the pandemic, and what patrons of restaurants can expect when they go, and how we can support restaurants going forward, because there are a lot of Greek restaurants out there, and we want to make sure that they're all up and running and healthy financially. And then we have a real estate event about the state of real estate during the pandemic. So we have quite a few events coming up. We hope everybody participates in those events as well. There's
Marco,
a lot to learn. Yes, Stelios?
one quick question. Are these meetings archived and saved somewhere?
Yes.
Oh, they are. Okay,
yes.
great.
The benefit of having meetings this way is that they are recorded.
Perfect.
So that if there's anything that you missed, you know, we can provide it to you. Poor Alexandra, of course, is going to have to do it, but you know, at least it's all there for our benefit and for everybody's knowledge. And you know, we are going to continue to do our best to promote Greece and its products and the Greek people, and we can only do that together. So The more of us that participate, the better for
And
everyone.
if you can, visit Greece. And if you can, visit.
Well, that's why we have Emirates fly me to Greece.
Right.
We're hoping that it doesn't get canceled again. In fact, I sent an email to Emirates today to see if we can set up another date. The idea is that we would do it around the same time that they would start flying, so that people had enough information. Before
August 1st is an important date, apparently. Let's watch out what August 1st will be like.
Yes.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Oh, thank you. And I will be sending a little packet because
Thank
we
you,
have
Alexandra.
There's presentation that cannot be uploaded.
Yeah, and thank you to all of our wonderful sponsors, especially Clay Maitland. He's always such a staunch supporter of everything Greek. Southern Star Shipping, Perot Shipping, Titan, Mediterranean Foods, Athene Imports, Nestor, everybody, Atasiwanu. If I missed anybody, I'm so sorry. Seward and Kissel. I think, Andrea, you can throw everybody's names up there. So yeah, I think I got Mega, of course, Titan, where some of us picked up our beer in Mediterranean, nice and easy group, and Abra, of course, Minosis, again, Pi, thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Marcos, Alexandra, thank you very much for a great event.
And
Looking forward to the next one.
Amen.
We're getting ready. We're getting ready.
Thank you. We'll speak soon.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
And Andrea,
we
still
still have
there?
a little bit more left.
Well, we're not forcing anybody to leave. You can still stay on and continue drinking. And chatting, of course.
Stay safe, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Linikda.
I don't want to close. Thank you for joining, everyone.